The ISS Valiant drifted silently into the vast orbital arena, its hull glinting dully beneath the harsh lights of the convocation station. Around it loomed gargantuan warships, massive dreadnoughts, shimmering carriers, and towering battle barges that seemed more like floating fortresses than vessels. Their silhouettes etched against the blackness of space made the Terran ship look like a child's toy, a pebble tossed into a sea of giants. Captain Elise Wren sat rigid in the command chair, her gaze unwavering from the viewport. Her crew moved quietly around the cramped bridge, hands steady but eyes sharp. They knew what the galaxy thought of them. Humanity's tiny warship was a joke here, a relic of a species still struggling to crawl from their cradle world. The other, powers Arkothi, Vunkrul, Ilari, and countless others had fought wars that reshaped stars. Humanity was barely a footnote. The Valiant measured only a few hundred meters in length. Sleek but utilitarian, designed for agility and precision. Rather than raw power or intimidation, its engines thrummed softly, almost hesitant beside the roaring core reactors of the convocation's other participants. Captain, Lieutenant Jox whispered, "They're already talking." Elise nodded without looking away. Voices crackled. Softly through come links from the Convocation Control Center, snippets of alien languages woven with derision. The Zarkathi Admiral's booming laugh echoed clearly across the com channel. "A toy ship," he said, voice thick with amusement. "Are we to believe these Terrans expect to join the galactic powers with that ... thing?" Elisa's jaw tightened. The Zarkathi were a proud warrior, race massive, clawed, and notoriously arrogant. Their words carried the weight of centuries of conquest and dominance. Yet here they were, mocking a species barely a century into interstellar travel. The ambassador, slender and ethereal with translucent skin that shimmered in the light, leaned toward her retinue. "They're still crawling out of their planetary caves," she said with a dismissive gesture. "Why would we dignify them with a real welcome?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd of diplomats and military observers. The crew exchanged glances, frustration mingled with determination. Captain Elise raised her voice calmly, cutting through the murmurs. "Let them mock," she said, her tone steady and measured. "We'll show them something else." Her words were not heard outside the bridge, but the crew felt them deeply. On the station, the vast conference chamber bustled with alien dignitaries, each eager to witness the grand display of military prowess. Holographic banners flickered with the symbols of ancient houses and galactic alliances. The convocation was the zenith of power politics, decades in planning, where species presented their might and forged uneasy truces. The Valiant was the last to arrive. The laughter that greeted its entrance was like thunder crashing in Elisa's ears. From her seat, she observed the great warship's displacer, colossal Vunkrul, dreadnought firing plasma lances that split asteroids like butter. Ilari carriers unleashing swarms of fighter drones in mesmerizing patterns. Zarkathi battle barges flexing their immense railguns. The other ships were enormous, their weapons devastating. Their presence alone was a warning. "We hold the stars." But the Valiant held nothing of the kind. Its power signature was faint. Its weapons systems, by all appearances, were modest. Yet Elise knew the truth. Inside its compact frame was a secret of technology so new, so untested, that it could reshape the balance of power. The lattice driver was humanity's ace. Their message to the galaxy: underestimate us at your peril. As the Valiant glided to its assigned position, the Zarkothi Admiral's voice came through the comms again. Captain Elise Wren, he sneered. If your ship fails, perhaps we can offer you a tow back to your solar system. The insult was meant to provoke, to humiliate. Elise's fingers tapped the armrest once. Thank you for your concern, she replied evenly. But the Valiant does not require assistance. Her words sent a ripple of surprise through the observers. No one expected defiance, let alone calm. Confidence, her second-in-command, Commander Malik, leaned forward. Captain, they're still lining up their weapons displays. Are you ready for your demonstration? Elise's eyes narrowed. Ready? We're not here to show off like children. Throwing stones. We're here to rewrite the rules. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Some still felt the sting of being mocked. But Elise's certainty was contagious. She keyed the comms again, speaking to the convocation organizers, requesting permission to commence our demonstration. A pause, then the reply. Permission granted. Target designated. Asteroid 4C112 in the eastern sector. Elise turned back to her crew. This is it. No theatrics. One shot, one chance. Let's make it count. Outside, the vast arena of space awaited, silent but watchful. The galaxy had already judged humanity and found it wanting. Elise smiled. Faintly, the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders. They haven't seen anything yet. The grandeur of the convocation's diplomatic gala was as dazzling as it was intimidating. Alien nobles and military officers in ornate uniforms crowded the vast chambers, their exotic faces illuminated by shifting holograms that painted stories of ancient battles and cosmic empires on the walls. The hum of layered conversations filled the air, alliances whispered, rivalries rekindled, and bets placed on what the Terran Valiant might attempt. Captain Elise Wren stood quietly at the edge of the room, her posture stiff but alert. Beside her, Commander Malik scanned the crowd, eyes sharp and calculating. They're still mocking us, Malik said in a low voice. I heard Viaran laughing about how long before our ship sputters out of the demonstration. Elise glanced at the Zarkothi Admiral, across the room a towering figure with sharp chitinous armor that gleamed under the lights. His smug grin spoke volumes. Let them, she replied. We don't have to prove anything tonight. Just one shot, one chance. Malik frowned. You really think one shot can change everything? After everything they've said, Elise's eyes narrowed, her voice quiet but unyielding. It will. The galaxy underestimates what humanity can do. They think we're primitive, unprepared. They don't know we've been watching them longer than they've suspected. Their exchange was interrupted by a voice behind them. Well, if it isn't Captain Wren and her infamous toy ship, said Ambassador Drell, the Vonkral delegate, his mandibles clicking in amusement. Do you truly expect that tiny thing to stand among the giants? You might as well send a courier pigeon. Elise didn't respond. Instead, she turned to face Drell, her expression calm and unreadable. Size doesn't guarantee victory, she said evenly. Power is in the precision of the strike, not the volume of the blast. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. Some scoffed, others whispered amongst themselves. The Ilari ambassador, an ethereal being who seemed almost woven from light itself, stepped forward. Peace, friends, she said, her voice melodic but sharp. Let the Terrans show us what their precision looks like. Perhaps the universe still holds surprises. Elise nodded subtly to the Ilari, appreciating the rare moment of support. Away from the political theatre, the Valiant's crew prepared. In their tight quarters, the ship's humming core was silent, but potent beneath their feet. A hidden reservoir of potential energy waiting to be unleashed. Lieutenant Jocks approached the captain's station, carrying a small data pad. Captain, sensor teams report that the asteroid for C112 is stable. No unusual readings. It's a perfect target. Elise studied the immediate massive chunk of rock floating in the eastern sector of the convocation arena, about 3 kilometers in diameter. Good, she said. No debris, no hidden threats. We get one shot. Make it count. Commander Malik leaned over her shoulder. There's talk outside. The warlords have placed bets on how long you'll last. Some say the Valiant will barely last a minute in the demonstration. Elise smirked. Let them. We'll rewrite those odds in one move. Back at the gala, the bets escalated. Admiral Viaran of the Zarkathi approached his inner circle, his voice low but triumphant. I'll wager a century of mining rights that the Terran ship is a dud, he declared. Their technology is unproven, their fleet laughably small. They'll fold under pressure. His second-in-command, a wiry veteran with scars crisscrossing his face, shook his head. We shouldn't underestimate them, Viaran. The humans are unpredictable. Unpredictable is just a fancy word for weak, Viaran snapped. I've seen. Their ships on scans pathetic. If they fire a shot, it'll be a warning flare, nothing more. Across the room, the whispers spread. The tension thickened like static in the air. All eyes slowly turned toward the observation windows overlooking the demonstration arena. The moment was approaching. Back on the Valiant's bridge, the crew took their positions. The massive holographic star map centered on the asteroid for C112. Sensors locked on the target. Weapon systems powered up silently beneath the calm exterior. Elise stood, shoulders squared, and addressed her crew. Remember, the lattice driver isn't just a weapon. It's a statement. One shot to show the galaxy what humanity can do when pushed to the edge. The weapons officer nodded grimly. All systems ready, Captain. Science officer Rhea adjusted her instruments. Energy readings at 100%. The quantum lattice field is stable. Elise's voice dropped to a whisper only her officers could hear. Let's make history. Moments later, the Valiant's sleek cannon aligned with the distant asteroid. The crew held their breath. Outside, countless eyes from 100 worlds focused in silence. Then, without warning, a slender beam of invisible energy shot from the barrel. No roar, no flash, no booming explosion. The asteroid seemed untouched until the sensors screamed. The rock folded in on itself, shrinking, compressing, then abruptly vanishing. Space around the target rippled like a stone skipped across the surface of reality itself. The convocation's massive arrays of sensors scrambled to make sense of what they were seeing. Whispers rose to stunned silence. The galaxy had been watching humanity's toy, and something impossible had happened. The vast arena of the convocation was silent for a heartbeat longer than anyone expected. Then murmurs rippled through the crowd, curious, confused, and edging toward disbelief. The asteroid 4C112, a solid chunk of rock that had loomed large for centuries in this sector, was gone. Erased, not shattered, not vaporized, but utterly absent. Captain Elise Wren's gaze remained steady on the viewport. The Valiant drifted calmly, its weapons cooling vents silent now, as if the shot had been nothing more than a whisper. Across the chamber, the Zarkothi Admiral's eyes widened in disbelief. He barked into his comms, sensor teams. Confirm. The asteroid's status. What happened to 4C112? Admiral, sensors indicate a localized spatial distortion, came the reply, static crackling over the channel. Mass and matter displaced beyond detectable ranges. It appears, ... it's gone. A low murmur grew into stunned voices. The Ilari ambassador stepped forward, her voice calm but charged with awe. This ... This defies everything we understand about physics, she said. To remove mass from reality itself, such technology should be impossible. Elisa's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. Impossible, she repeated softly, to herself. The other species scrambled to analyze. Massive consoles flickered, displaying convoluted equations and quantum flux readings that left even the most advanced minds scratching their heads. On the Valiant's bridge, Commander Malik tapped the comms. Captain, external sensors confirmed the target's complete disappearance. No debris, no residual energy signatures typical of antimatter reactions or plasma discharges. Science Officer Rhea leaned over her console, her fingers dancing over. Controls. The quantum lattice field appears to have folded space-time around the asteroid, compressing it until it ceased to exist in this dimension. It's a clean removal, no fragmentation, no collateral damage. Elise nodded, exactly as designed. The lattice driver doesn't destroy, it deletes. The room remained tense. This was new territory. The convocation had expected a spectacular blast, a flashy demonstration of brute force. Instead, they'd witnessed a surgical erasure. Back in the diplomatic chambers, Ambassador Drell of the Von Krull wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. If what they claim is true, this changes everything. This weapon, if replicated, renders all our fleet arsenals obsolete. Viaren the Zarkathi was pacing, jaw clenched tight. This is a trick or a fluke. We must investigate. His second-in-command urged caution. We don't know the limits of their technology. What if it's a bluff, a one-time effect? But Viaren shook his head. Bluff or not, it's a threat, and threats must be eliminated before they grow. Elise's comms crackled with the voice of the convocation's chief marshal. A towering figure swayed in ceremonial regalia. Captain Wren, your demonstration was ... unprecedented. The convocation demands an explanation. What is the reach and power of this weapon? Can it be deployed against fleets, planets? Elise's voice was steady, unyielding. The lattice driver is scalable, but its deployment requires precision. It can remove a target's mass from space-time in a single pulse. We have not yet tested limits beyond the demonstration target. There was silence on the channel. Captain, the convocation will convene emergency councils to discuss this technology. You are hereby ordered to remain on station for questioning. Elise closed the comms. She exchanged a glance with Malik. They want answers, but some things are better left unsaid. The atmosphere in the arena shifted. Ships that had previously roared with confidence now held their weapons in careful readiness. The once boisterous halls were thick with tension and quiet speculation. The Von Krull warlord stepped forward, voice low but venomous. Your toy has teeth. How many shots do you have, Tehran? Elise met his gaze evenly. One shot is all we need. A ripple of disbelief swept through the crowd. Commander Malik stepped forward. This is not a show of force, but a warning. We prefer peace. But if mocked or threatened again, we will use our technology to protect what we've built. The Alari ambassador, usually detached and ethereal, now spoke with unexpected warmth. Perhaps this is a new chapter for the galaxy. one that demands respect not by size or number, but by understanding and restraint. Later, back on the Valiant, the crew worked silently, aware that their lives and humanity's place in the galaxy had changed irrevocably. Elise stood alone at the viewport, eyes tracing the dark expanse. She thought of Earth, its fragile blue oceans and crowded cities, and how far humanity had come from those distant origins. They had been mocked, ridiculed, and dismissed. But today, with one impossible shot, they'd rewritten the rules, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silence after the Valiant shot stretched far beyond what anyone expected. The Convocation's sensors scrambled to interpret the data, their readings defying every known law of physics. For centuries, great warships had wielded power measured in explosions, plasma storms, and mass destruction. But this was different. The asteroid 4C112 had not been shattered or burned. It had simply ceased to exist, as if the universe had swallowed it whole, leaving nothing behind but a faint distortion in space. Commander Malik stood beside Captain Elise Wren on the bridge, watching the flickering displays. The quantum lattice field has folded the asteroid's space-time fabric, compressing it into a non-existent state, he explained, voice tense. It's a phenomenon only theorized in the deepest physics and now, Elise nodded, her eyes scanning the data with calm intensity. Our weapon doesn't obliterate, it deletes. One pulse, and the target disappears from the dimension entirely. The room was charged with a mix of awe and apprehension. The Valiant's crew, seasoned and trained, were stunned by the magnitude of what they had unleashed, but also aware of the responsibility that came with such power. Far away, in the Convocation's grand observation chamber, shock rippled through the audience. Military commanders, scientists, and politicians whispered urgently, some rubbing their eyes as if trying to awaken from a dream. "What sorcery is this?" hissed Admiral Viaran, pacing in front of the assembled warlords. "No explosion, no debris, just ... nothingness." "The readings don't lie," said the Vunkral ambassador, his mandibles twitching nervously. "The asteroid is gone, vanished without a trace. Our best physicists are baffled." The Alari ambassador stepped forward, voice calm but charged with concern. "If the Terrans have harnessed this technology, our entire understanding of warfare must be reconsidered. A weapon like this threatens all of us." Back on the Valiant, Elise turned to her communications officer. "Open channel to the Convocation Council. Inform them that we are prepared to discuss the technology within limits, but stress that this is a defensive capability, not an act of aggression." The channel crackled to life. The Council's voice was brisk, edged with suspicion. "Captain Wren, your demonstration has unsettled the entire Convocation. We require details. How many such weapons do you possess? What are the limits of its power?" Elise's voice remained steady, firm. "Only one is deployed on the Valiant," she replied. "The weapon requires immense energy and precise targeting. It cannot be fired repeatedly without risk to the ship. We intend it as a deterrent, not a tool of conquest." The Council's reply was cautious. "We will discuss your claims. Meanwhile, the Valiant is to remain in station under observation." Elise ended the communication. She exchanged a look with Malik. "They want to cage us," she said quietly. "But this ship and this crew will not be shackled." In the corridors outside the observation chamber, whispers turned into heated debates. Some feared the Terran weapon could destabilize galactic peace. Others saw it as an opportunity new deterrent that might prevent wars through sheer terror. Ambassador Drell approached the Zarkothi admiral, voice low and urgent. If they weaponize this, the balance of power shifts dramatically. We must acquire their secrets by any means necessary. Vrin's eyes gleamed with cold calculation. Agreed, we cannot allow humanity to dictate terms. This technology must be ours or destroyed. Meanwhile, deep inside the Valiant, Science Officer Raya monitored the power core. The quantum lattice field had drained enormous amounts of energy for the shot, leaving the ship's systems running. On reserve, the core will need hours to stabilize, Raya reported. We can't sustain another shot like that without risking critical failure. Elise considered this. Then one shot it is. A warning ... and a promise. Malik's voice was grave. Captain, if the others realize the limits of our weapon, they might strike while we're vulnerable. Elise's jaw tightened. Then we must be ready for that. This ship may be small, but it carries the weight of humanity's survival. Later, in the solitude of her quarters, Elise stared at a faded photograph of Earth's night sky, its cities twinkling like distant stars. She thought of the billions depending on her, the fragile hope humanity carried into the cold vastness of space. Her cum beeped softly. Malik's voice came through. Captain, the Council has requested a meeting. They want to discuss terms of our continued presence. Elise nodded, though no one could see her. Prepare the bridge. This conversation is just beginning. Outside the Valiant, the galaxy watched with bated breath. Humanity's tiny warship had fired one impossible shot, destroying what no one thought could be erased. The universe was no longer certain of its rules, and Captain Elise Wren knew that the real battle, the one for respect, survival, and the future, was only just beginning. The Convocation Council chamber was a towering hexagonal room, its walls alive with shifting star maps, diplomatic crests, and holographic feeds of the Valiant's recent demonstration. Representatives from every major galactic power were present, their expressions a mix of curiosity, fear, and thinly veiled hostility. Captain Elise Wren stood at the center of the room, flanked by Commander Malik and Science Officer Raya. The Council's chairman, a stern-faced Ilari elder with eyes like liquid silver, opened the proceedings. Captain Wren, your actions have sent ripples across the galaxy. Your weapon's power is unprecedented, the elder said solemnly. We require assurances. What guarantees can you provide that this technology will not be used aggressively? Elise met the elder's gaze without hesitation. This technology is a shield, not a sword. Humanity seeks peace, not domination. But if threatened, we will defend ourselves with every resource available. A murmur echoed among the delegates. The Zarkothi admiral, his massive frame leaning forward, growled. Peace is maintained by strength and dominance, Captain. Your shield could very well be the most dangerous spear in existence. The conversation quickly escalated. Debates flared over security, control, and the ethical implications of such a weapon. Outside the chamber, whispers carried rumors that spread like wildfire. Some called the Valiant's technology a game-changer, others a threat to the cosmic order. Fear stirred alliances. Old rivalries reignited. Ambassador Drell of the Vunkrul cornered a group of commanders. If humanity possesses this power, the balance of influence shifts radically. We must act either by acquiring their technology or neutralizing the threat. His words struck a chord, especially with Viaran, the Zarkothi warlord, who watched from a shadowed alcove. His claws tapped impatiently against the railing. Let them talk, he hissed. We shall strike before they can solidify their position. Back aboard the Valiant, the crew moved with tense purpose. The power core hummed steadily, but the drain from the lattice driver's shot had left it vulnerable. Lieutenant Jocks approached. The Captain, our sensors detect multiple fleets mobilizing near the Convocation, sectors Arkothi, Vunkral, and others. They're clearly wary of our presence. Elisa's eyes narrowed. They're positioning to strike while we're weak. Prepare defenses and alert all personnel. This ship may be small, but we will not fall quietly. Commander Malik tapped on a console. Our agility and stealth are our advantages. We'll use them, but we need to anticipate their moves. Science Officer Raya interjected. I'm recalibrating the lattice field to reduce energy consumption. It might give us a chance at a follow-up shot if needed. Elise nodded firmly. Good. We need every edge we can get. The galaxy, once indifferent to humanity's fledgling efforts, was now watching with wary eyes. A single shot had unmasked potential that no one had predicted, and the ensuing paranoia threatened to ignite conflicts long dormant within the halls of power. The factions debated preemptive strikes and alliances. The old galactic order sensed its foundations shifting. The Valiant, once dismissed as a mere curiosity, had become the fulcrum of power and fear. Elise stood on the bridge, staring out into the endless void. Her thoughts drifted to Earth, the fragile blue planet spinning silently beneath layers of atmosphere and clouds. For all its beauty and chaos, it was home. She whispered to herself, we fight not for glory, but for survival. For those who dream of peace, Malik approached quietly. Captain, the fleets are closing in. They'll make their moves soon. Elisa's gaze hardened. Then we'll show them what humanity truly means. The stage was set for a confrontation that could reshape the galaxy. The Valiant was no longer a tiny warship, was a beacon of hope, defiance, and raw, unpredictable power. And Captain Elise Wren was ready to lead humanity through the storm. Asterisk. The vast emptiness of space around the Convocation sector had never felt more claustrophobic. Sensors aboard the Valiant blinked relentlessly, tracking the shifting silhouettes of alien warships closing in with predatory precision. Captain Elise Wren stood at the helm, every muscle taut, her eyes scanning the tactical displays. Commander Malik was by her side, his fingers dancing over the controls, coordinating the ship's defensive systems. Multiple contacts, Malik said, voice low but urgent. Zarkothi frigates, Vankral cruisers, and a flotilla of smaller attack vessels. They're forming a pincer closing in fast. Elise's expression hardened. They think we're vulnerable after that first shot. They want to overwhelm us before we can strike again. Lieutenant Jocks chimed in from weapons. Our shields are stable, but we're not built for prolonged engagement. The lattice field recharge isn't complete. Science Officer Raya's voice cut through the tension. I've managed to optimize power flow to the lattice generator, but any further shots will push the core to its limits. We need to be precise and decisive. Elise nodded. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We won't fight a war of attrition. We fight smart. Outside, the darkness rippled with warships bristling with weapons. The Convocation's finest had underestimated the Valiant, and now they sought to punish that mistake. The Valiant slipped through space like a shadow, its sleek frame darting between asteroids and debris fields. Elise ordered silent running, using every ounce of the ship's advanced stealth technology to avoid detection. But the enemy was relentless. The Vonkral cruisers unleashed waves of sensor pulses, forcing the Valiant to evade with sudden bursts of speed, narrowly avoiding plasma barrages that scorched the void. Admiral Vian's voice crackled over enemy channels, dripping with contempt. Small ship, big mouth, prepare to be crushed. Elise's voice was calm but icy as she responded on a private channel she'd hacked into. You forget, precision beats power. One shot, one chance. The Valiant weaved through the enemy formation, exploiting gaps and weak points. It was a dance of survival technology and wit against overwhelming numbers. On the bridge, the crew worked seamlessly. Anticipation and fear balanced on a knife's edge. Target acquired. The Vunkral command cruiser, Malik, reported. If we take that out, their formation will crumble. Elise's eyes flicked to the holographic display. The cruiser was massive, a floating fortress bristling with turrets and shield arrays. Charge the lattice driver, she ordered. We're firing again. This one shot will count more than all the rest. The power core roared as the quantum lattice field built up energy. Humming with dangerous intensity, Raya's fingers flew over the controls. Core integrity at 90%. We have to fire before the enemy closes the gap. Malik gave the final countdown. 5.4.3.2. Fire, Elise commanded. A slender beam, invisible yet devastating, shot from the Valiant's cannon. It sliced through space, striking the cruiser's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cruiser began to shimmer, its massive bulk folding inward like a dying star collapsing, sensors confirmed. The cruiser was erased, gone without a trace. Chaos erupted in the enemy fleet. Without their flagship, command fractured. The Vunkral warlords shouted orders, but coordination was lost. The Valiant exploited the confusion. Slipping away with lightning speed, Elise allowed herself a brief smile. One shot had changed the course of the battle, but she knew this was only the beginning. Back in the convocation chambers, the reaction was seismic. Ambassador Drell's voice was sharp. This technology threatens to destabilize the entire region. We must respond decisively. The Alari elder sighed. Or we must reconsider what peace means when weapons like this exist. Vron's rage was palpable. Humanity will pay for this humiliation. On the Valiant, the crew prepared for what was sure to come next. Elise stood at the viewport once more, staring into the star-speckled void. We've proven we're not to be underestimated, she said quietly. But now they know what we're capable of. They'll come at us harder. Malik nodded. Then we give them a fight they won't forget. Elise's gaze hardened. For Earth, for humanity, we stand alone, but we stand strong. The vast silence of space was shattered as fleets converged like storm clouds over the convocation sector. The Valiant's sensors flickered with hundreds of hostile contacts, warships, cruisers, and dreadnoughts from every corner of the galaxy. Captain. Elise Wren stood on the bridge, her jaw tight, the weight of humanity's future heavy on her shoulders. This was the moment she'd feared and expected, a full-scale siege. Commander Mollick's fingers moved rapidly over the tactical console. They're surrounding us in a tight formation, cutting off any escape routes. Their intent is clear capture or destroy. Science Officer Raya's eyes were fixed on the quantum lattice generator's readout. The core's stable for now, but firing again would be catastrophic. We're a single shot away from disaster. Elise nodded. Then this ship's size is our advantage. We're small, agile, and unpredictable. We fight like that. Outside the Valiant, The enemy fleet was a monstrous wall of metal and firepower. Massive cruisers bristled with turrets, and sleek frigates weaved through the gaps. Scanning for the smallest sign of movement, Admiral Vrun's voice blasted over enemy comms, dripping with scorn. "Terrans, your tiny toy cannot withstand the might of the Convocation. Surrender and spare yourselves further humiliation." Elisa's response was calm, unwavering. "We surrender to no one. If you want us, you'll have to take us." The first wave struck. Energy blasts hammered the Valiant's shields, rattling the crew and shaking the ship. Alarms blared as weapon systems flared to life in response. Lieutenant Jock shouted, shields holding at 70%. "Incoming plasma. Torpedoes." Malik initiated evasive maneuvers, twisting the ship in a deadly ballet. The Valiant darted between volleys, narrowly avoiding destruction. Rhea's voice was steady despite the chaos. Power to engines increased. "We can't sustain this long, but we'll outlast their initial barrage." Inside the chaos, Elisa's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but their secret weapon, the lattice driver, remained a potent ace. She knew that firing it now would be suicide. The ship needed time, patience, and an opening. "Focus on survival," she commanded. "Draw them in, tire them out." As the siege wore on, cracks appeared in the enemy formation. The Valiant's relentless, evasive tactics, combined with precise counterattacks, began to sow confusion. Malik's voice crackled over comms. "Several cruisers report systems failures, energy fluctuations, shield collapses. They don't understand the cause." Elise smiled grimly. "Our technology isn't just a weapon. It's a psychological hammer." But the enemy was adapting. Feren's forces deployed specialized drones designed to track the Valiant's unique energy signature. They tightened the noose, slowly closing in. Elise felt the pressure mounting. Each passing moment brought the enemy closer to overwhelming their defenses. Suddenly, an alert blared core, integrity falling rapidly, Rhea warned. "The lattice generator is destabilizing." Elise's heart pounded. "Is the weapon ready?" "Not yet. If we fire now, the ship may not survive." The decision loomed. The Valiant's fate and humanity's hinged on a desperate gamble. Elise took a deep breath. "Prepare to fire at my command. We'll take out their flagship, disrupt their coordination, and break the siege." Malik nodded. "Ready when you are." Outside the enemy flagship, a colossal dreadnought, glowing with menacing energy, advanced toward. The Valiant Elis's voice was steel. "Fire on my mark. 3.2.1." The Valiant unleashed its quantum lattice pulse. A brilliant, silent beam surged forth, enveloping the dreadnought in an otherworldly glow. Seconds later, it vanished, erased as cleanly as the asteroid. Before it, the enemy fleet faltered. Without their command ship, their coordination collapsed into chaos. Fleets scattered, communications jammed. The Valiant seized the moment. Weaving through the confusion, Elise allowed herself a breath of hope, but she knew this was just the beginning. In the aftermath, the Convocation was shaken to its core. Humanity's tiny warship had stood against impossible odds and survived. But the galaxy's eyes were now fixed on the Valiant and its captain. The question remained, what would come next? The remnants of the Convocation fleet scattered like frightened prey, their shattered command structures struggling to regroup. Silence returned to the void, broken only by the steady hum of the Valiant systems and the quiet breaths of its crew. Captain Elise Wren stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the starfield beyond. The stars, distant and indifferent, seemed to blink with cautious respect. Humanity's tiny warship had done what no one thought possible. It had rewritten the rules of galactic power. Commander Malik approached. His usually stoic face softened. With a rare smile, "We've done it, Captain." Against impossible odds, we held our ground. Elise nodded slowly. "Yes, but this isn't victory yet. This is a beginning. The galaxy won't forget what we've shown them, and neither will we." Back on Earth, news of the Valiant's triumph sparked waves of hope and fear. Humanity celebrated its defiance, but leaders understood the fragile nature of peace. The secret weapon had changed everything. Alliances would shift, old powers would crumble, and new ones would rise. Science Officer Raya, exhausted but resolute, monitored the ship's systems. "The core is stable for now, but we'll need to find a safer way to harness the lattice energy if we want to survive long term." Elise placed a hand on Raya's shoulder. "We will. Humanity's ingenuity is its greatest weapon. We adapt. We evolve." In the Convocation's shattered halls, the defeated ambassadors met in emergency sessions. Some called for peace talks, wary of further conflict with the Terrans. Others, like Admiral Viran, seethed with vengeance. "We cannot allow humanity's technology to threaten the Convocation's future," Viran growled. "We will rebuild, and we will return stronger and more prepared." But the tides were shifting. The Alari Elder, once a skeptic, spoke with measured wisdom. "Perhaps it is time to embrace change, to find a new balance where power is tempered by respect." As the Valiant prepared to leave the sector, Elise gathered her crew. "You've all fought bravely, and more than that, you've made history. But our journey is far from over." Malik raised a glass in a quiet toast, to the Valiant and to humanity's place among the stars. The crew cheered softly, a family forged in fire and space. Elise looked out once more, the stars a tapestry of infinite possibility. She knew the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger. But humanity had taken its first true step into the galactic arena. One shot had destroyed their enemy's pride. One shot had sparked a new hope, and one shot had shown the universe that the smallest spark could ignite the brightest flame. The end.